what is different about this Eagles team? I talk about the tackling. They have an identity on the defense, too. They're physical up front. They're a physical defense, not only up front, the linebackers. They are a physical team in the secondary. They'll come up and tackle you. They will basically do whatever they can figure out to bring you to the ground. For them to be able to tackle Derrick Henry the way they did yesterday, for them to be able to get him and keep him in check, they took that away from the Baltimore Ravens yesterday. And we talk about the styles and this is the way the game's going to go. Baltimore does not want to have to get away from that, right? When they have to play from behind and throw the ball, the Eagles were saying, hey, listen, we love our secondary. If you want to try to throw the ball up there, you're throwing it into the lion's den. And I thought yesterday the Eagles defense really proved that they are a team that can get pressure, which is a question that we've been asking. Can they get the pressure? And can make plays in the secondary. And they are the two key components in the game when the team is trying to throw the ball against you. Can you get pressure and keep their quarterback off rhythm? And can you make plays in the secondary? And if they catch, can you tackle? And the Eagles defense, I thought, did a great job of doing that yesterday. And that's why they're standing here at 10-2. We talked to you, a lot of people. We asked you on the X platform, at Mike Gill Show. You can vote over there. What impressed you most about the Eagles' win yesterday? Was it the way their defense played, or was it the way their offense played in terms of being patient and holding, out until that big run came? They did not get away from Saquon Barkley. They did not lose patience with the run game, even though it wasn't where they wanted it to be. We'll get to Geoff Mosher and ask him that question. But right now, the votes are coming in. What impressed you the most about the Eagles' win in Baltimore? 91% say it was their defense yesterday, Geoff Mosher. Only 8% are going with the Eagles' offense. It seems, Jeff, that people are starting to buy into the Eagles' defense.
Yeah, Mike, and how can you not after that, right, that performance? And I remember we spoke last week or the week before. The Eagles have been ranked number one on defense, I think, in total yards allowed for a couple of weeks now. And you've been asking me, do they look like the number one defense? And I say, well, they look really good, obviously very improved, and it's been great team defense. But when you think of a number one defense, you usually think about someone who has either a shutdown corner or has a Fred Warner at linebacker or a TJ Watt at pass rusher. And this team, outside of maybe Jalen Carter and Zach Bond playing at a high level, but even Zach Bond's not necessarily a household name yet. But you watch them play, Mike, week after week, and I don't know really what's left for them to prove as far as being a great defense. We made this point in the post-game show. I don't care how many yards the Ravens had or their garbage time touchdown. It seemed like every positive Ravens play, they really had to earn it. There was nothing easy. And to say that about a Ravens team that has an MVP candidate at both quarterback and running back is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and were you surprised? On defense, what were you looking forward to seeing the challenge for their defense in the pregame?
What was I looking forward to? Well, obviously the two things when you're playing the Ravens, you really have to do is have discipline. Discipline in your pass rush. You can't get up the field as fast. This is what teams face when they face the Eagles when they have good pass rushers. You can't get up the field that fast because then Lamar can just run right by you. So you have to be disciplined in your rush lanes, and then you have to have good eye discipline on the back end. You have to have good plaster coverage for when Lamar does make off-structure plays. And then, by the way, Lamar's he's become a very good pocket passer too. So you have to match that physicality that the Ravens bring with both Derrick Henry in their run game, and then, Mark Andrews is a tough physical receiver. So all three of those things, eye discipline, rush discipline, physicality, those were three things that you were looking for out of the Eagles defense.
Well, I think and one of the things that this team, for them to be a Super Bowl winning level team, you got to have the consistency from up front. Did the pass rush, I don't know, did it erase your doubts about them yesterday? I think we were all saying, hey, where are they going to get pass rush from against a good team? Have they said, hey, listen, we don't have that elite pass rusher, but we're finding ways to get pass rush week in and week out?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly moved Lamar off of his mark, which, Lamar's not afraid to move off his mark. So they did the first job of that pretty often. And sometimes Lamar will just move himself off the mark anyway because he's such a great runner and great thrower of the football on the run. And it's hard to measure pass rush in particular against a player like Lamar because, like I said, you really can't go full throttle if you're an edge defender especially because you can't lose contain. You got to try to keep him in the pocket the best you can. So I actually think, and the defensive line played great, but you really need to get excellent play from your linebackers and your secondary because the pass rush is only going to give you half the very few quarterbacks can do. I mean, there's Mahomes, Jalen Hurts right there, can get out of there and still make plays like that. So it's great to have a pass rush against Lamar, but you have to finish the play. And that's where a lot of teams really struggle. And that's where Lamar is so good. And the Eagles did a great job from a variety of different players, Mike, finishing off the play. You think of Cooper DeJean hitting Derrick Henry, right, in the flat. And you think of Zach Bond nailing Derrick Henry again on 3rd and 2. You think about, I forget, Lamar made the big play to Zay Flowers, but he was nearly sacked in that play as well. I mean, the Eagles did a good job in the red zone of finishing the plays and not letting those extended plays break their back.
You got that right. I mean, and I thought, a couple of the guys I think under the radar, okay, how are they going to handle Brandon Graham the first week without him? Saw a lot of Jalix Hunt in the game. I thought he played a really good game. I mean, he had some moments. He had like a half a sack, but I thought against the run he held up a little bit. And you saw some other guys, but the first week without Brandon Graham, the worry you have is Brandon Graham is not a stat filler, but he gets pressure. Not a lot of sacks, but he gets pressure. He sets the edge, so he doesn't get a lot of tackles, but he does a job of letting everybody else. And you were wondering, how was that going to play out? And I thought the guys that they used yesterday, and I thought the way that Vic Fangio changed their look up in the defense certainly was a difference in that game as well.
100%. That was my biggest concern going into the game, not having Brandon Graham. And then when you combine that, you don't have Bryce Huff either. I know Bryce Huff isn't lighting up the stat sheet, and he hasn't been playing in a while, but that's down 2 edge rushers, and it really left you with just Josh Sweat and Nolan Smith, and of course, Jalix Hunt, who had to play a decent amount of snaps too. And then you're worried about any kind of injuries after that. I'll say you're right. Vic Fangio definitely pushed a lot of right buttons. I think Josh Sweat played a really good game as well, as far as being physical, as far as defending the run, because without Brandon Graham in there, you needed somebody to do that, defending the run, but also dropping into coverage sometimes, closing lanes as they threw a lot of sim pressures at the Ravens. So it was just really good team defense, team physicality, and finishing. I think finishing is the big word for me when it comes to that, how they play defense.
Well, and you say finishing. I say the same thing. When I watch this defense, what makes me kind of buy into them, for me, Moshe, is they tackle you. You had 23 tackles from your linebackers yesterday. The physicality from Cooper DeJean, the tackle that he made on Jamar Chase, the one that he makes yesterday on Derrick Henry. This team does something that a lot of teams just simply don't. They tackle you, they bring you to the ground, and they are willing to step up and say, look, we'll fight you. We'll try to, if you want to try to out-physical us, like I think Baltimore tried yesterday, and I think Philly won that battle.
And it doesn't seem that long ago. I mean, 10 weeks maybe considered long in an NFL season, goes by pretty quickly to me, but it wasn't really that long ago that we were discussing, oh man, they missed on. First of all, we were discussing, man, this team is having a lot of problem tackling, and missing on Devin White is a real big issue. I mean, who has thought, who spent 2 seconds over the last, I don't know, at least 7 or 8 weeks thinking about not having Devin White, right? I mean, it's a great turnaround for the defense since the bye week and since getting Cooper DeJean on the field. It's brought a physicality and toughness. This guy body slammed Derrick Henry. Who does that, right? I mean, that was a signature play in that game, and it's not all about one guy, but certainly the move to getting him on the field instead of Avonte Maddox. enabled Vic to play more nickel defense, which is what you want to play, and be comfortable and confident in it. And then within that, Jalen Carter over the last 5 or 6 weeks has really grown into his role as a potential all-pro defensive tackle.
The Jalen Carter part of this, I mean, the consistency that he has, but that's the key. If he could stay at this level, last year he played really well for about the first 8 to 10 weeks, and then he kind of fell off in concert with when the defense fell apart. But if he's playing at this level, that sets a tone for everything. That means 3 levels of somebody excelling. Jalen Carter up front that the offensive line has to figure out, double team, triple team sometimes. The linebackers doing their job. And then there's the secondary. You can't give your flowers more to this secondary with Quinyon. Nobody even throws at him anymore. He gets like 2 targets a game his way. Isaiah Rodgers coming in. You didn't hear anything about him. The 2 safeties, Blankenship goes out. You almost get the pick late in the game, which was better that McCollum didn't intercept that ball, but he steps up and makes a play. But you almost the communication in the secondary, I think, is an underrated reason of why they're so good.
100%. We talked about on the post-game show yesterday, is that it is such a night and day difference from last year when you had you had a defense that couldn't defend motion, couldn't defend a trips formation, couldn't defend a bunch formation. When I say couldn't defend, I don't mean that they were just getting beat by a couple of steps. They were literally leaving guys wide open all over the field. It was a slow secondary. It was undynamic. You can count the linebackers in there as well. It didn't make plays. And it would have been hard for me to believe that in less than a year, they could remake it all, that it would go from that bad. And I think they finished the year, 3rd worst pass defense in the league, to being the best defense in the league. That is, listen, I already know this from talking to enough people. Even the organization couldn't have imagined it was all going to happen this fast. Remember, and to part of the unsungness is not just the communication, Mike, but maybe even the coaching. Remember that Quinyon Mitchell played nickel almost all of OTAs in training camp. It wasn't until about a week before that he moved outside. So he's done a heck of a job picking up the defense, the outside corner role. I know that's what he played in college, but he wasn't doing that for most of camp. So there's just been a great learning curve for a lot of players, and I think you have to give the coaching staff a lot of credit. And the one guy that really jumps out to me is Bobby King, the linebackers coach, and it jumps out to me because he's the one guy on the staff that never even coached under Pitt. And you can argue that he's doing the positional coaching job on the team.
I'll tell you, the defense, a lot of people wondering, and I'll get your thoughts on it. They did a lot of this against teams that are probably not playoff teams, but are you at the level where you say, I don't have any more questions about this defense?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I feel like this about all the if you want to call them the core 4 Super Bowl contenders, the Lions, the Eagles, the Bills, and the Chiefs, of course. Maybe I feel like everybody else is maybe a little bit of a notch below. Any of those 4 teams, they all have some flaws, different flaws, and any one of them can have a bad day, right, and lose in the playoffs. Sure. But in general, you feel like any one of those 4 teams, they bring their normal game, they're going to be tough to beat. And it may not be a great NFL this year as far as having a lot of really good teams, but those 4 teams are pretty darn tough, man. It's going to be a really fun playoffs.
Yeah, and listen, I think, Detroit, it's a battle of attrition, too, for Detroit and Philly. I mean, Philly, a couple guys, They lose Brandon Graham. They don't play with Devontae Smith yesterday. They lose Reed Blankenship. Now, Detroit's got a couple of more injuries that they've dealt with, but who can make it to the finish line? But you're right, those 4 teams all seem to be the ones, and maybe you want to throw in a Pittsburgh. Philly will play them next week, not this week. They'll play Carolina, followed by Pittsburgh. But I want to get your thoughts on what the offense did yesterday. They're down 9-0 again, and people keep wondering, can they keep doing this? Can they keep doing this? But what I was impressed with, while they're down, was they stayed patient and didn't try to throw themselves back into the game.
100%. And I'm going to give a lot of credit to Jalen Hurts because when they were down 9-0, I think on those 2 touchdown drives, the one that ended in the Goddard touchdown and the one that ended in his own 1-yard touchdown run, he made 3 really good throws between the hashes, the area where we always say that he doesn't really throw the ball well or doesn't see the openings. I thought he made 3 really good throws on those 2 drives to help move the chains and then eventually finish those drives with touchdowns. And that's not something that we've seen a whole lot of this year from Jalen Hurts. And when you have a game where you only have 11 total completions and 3 of them were of those caliber, then I give you your flowers. And I know a lot of people think that we over-criticize the guy, so I'm going to give him 100% credit when he makes plays like that.
I'll tell you what, Moshe. It's almost as if you and I had a conversation before the game, because I said the same thing, in that Hurts, he had 19 passes yesterday, 118 yards, and yet I thought he made very patient decisions, and he didn't try to take big shots down the field to get back into the game all in one throw and a little slip to Goddard. You're right. He made a couple of just underneath stuff that he's been struggling with this year. And some people say, he's the weak spot of the team. The offense, I thought he played the game that they needed him to. He stayed within himself and within the game plan yesterday.
Absolutely, and did a great job. Now, is the passing offense still probably overall the weakness of the team? Yeah, but I mean, you get everybody's.
But there's plays there, Mo. There's plays.
I'll say the Chiefs passing offense is also the weakness of that team, and they've got Patrick Mahomes, right? So like I said, every team's got a little bit of a bugaboo. The Eagles can overcome it. They've done a great job of leaning on the ground game, bringing back the RPOs, and getting those plays when they need them.
It's frustrating, though, because the play – I tweeted this out yesterday, and it's been retweeted about 1,000 times. I said that slant to A.J. Brown should be used 5 to 7 times a game. It's there all the time, and it's positive. I mean, it's like he catches it at 5 to 6 yards, and then the first guy's not tackling him. He breaks out of the tackle, and he gets the first down. They used it one other time later on in the game, but that play is there for them whenever they want it. Not having Smith yesterday, I think, obviously limits the pass game, but you saw some of the underneath stuff was there for them yesterday, and it's like, why don't they go to it more?
You know what? It's hard, Mike. I mean, they're averaging, in the last 7 or 8 games, they're averaging over 30 points. They're running the ball a lot more and running it effectively. So obviously you're going to pass the ball fewer, which means your quarterback may not be in the same kind of rhythm that he would ordinarily be if he threw the ball, say, 35 times a game. But on the flip side, if he's throwing it 35 times a game, then he's probably, given his history, missing a few that he should be making and hurting the team as well. So what they've got right now is working for them. If they lose in playoffs because they don't score enough points, okay, that's only one team's going to win it at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
I still think that to beat the Eagles, even if their passing game isn't great, you're still going to have to score a lot of points and play your A game. So at this point, I'm not really concerned about it. I know that if that happens, if they lose a game, it's going to be the big talk and, oh, my God, they didn't throw the ball. But, look, they've proven it right now. This is how they win games. And only one team can be standing at the end. Sometimes you can play well and lose.
Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com. Well, I got to tell you, Moshe, 10-2. They were in the spot last year. They were 10-2 at this time last year as well, but they had lost the game to get to 10-2. They win this week to get to 10-2 after starting 2-2. So I got to tell you, you better put your credentials in for New Orleans because that has to be in by the 6th.
Already been filled out, my friend.
All right,
and
man.
I did it weeks ago, so I don't want anybody to call me a jinx, all right?
You know what? I didn't
even email went out about a month ago.
And it wasn't that I didn't believe. I just haven't thought about it. And Grayson texted me today and said, have you applied for the Super Bowl yet? I was like, oh, damn. But with good reason this time around because it looks like it is unlike last year at this point when it was starting to slip away, it feels like the arrow's going up and not down. Geoff Mosher from the Inside the Birds podcast for today's Football at 4. Thanks, buddy.
You got it, Mike. Take care.